Now I know right now some of y'all are saying, "Oh, Alan went against his word." He said the earliest he was going to upload another video was Monday, but today is Sunday. So he went against his word. He said 99% chance he wasn't coming back to record another video until at earliest Monday of next week, and it is Sunday of the next week. Yep, I'm recording the video. I don't know if I'm gonna upload it today, which is Sunday, but I'm definitely recording it on Sunday. Second thing I know some of you guys are saying is, dang, is ARC just gonna grow out an afro, man? Seems like he been letting his hair grow out for the last couple months. Well, I guess speaking of my hair, man, I got some bad news. My regular barber passed away in early to mid June, man. Yeah, even though since the pandemic, I had actually most of the time cut my own hair, but yeah, a guy named Curtis, man, he was a real good brother, man, real good brother. Um, yeah, he was my regular barber since 2006. Yep, from 2006 all the way through until 2020. That was my regular barber. Was a guy, brother named Curtis. Grew up in Gary, Indiana, and yeah, he passed away in early to mid June. I think because of COVID-related complications, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, that was some sad news. But anyway, yeah, this one the longest I've gone without cutting my hair. Normally I cut my hair an average of once every 4 to 6 weeks is usually my average. Yeah, I usually cut my hair, get it cut or cut it myself an average of once every 4 to 6 weeks. But yeah, I haven't cut my hair, man. What is it now? Early August. Well, no, it hasn't been more than 6 weeks. I take that back. I was thinking it was more than 6 weeks. Now, last time I cut my hair was actually it was late June, the last week of June. So is that what? Yeah, that might be about 6 weeks. Yeah, last time I cut my hair was I remember it was the last week of June. Well, yeah, it was the last week of June, the last Monday in June. Whatever was the last Monday in June was, see, now I'm going to check my calendar and see the exact date of when the last time I cut my hair. June 28th. June 28th was the last time I cut my hair. So that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Whoa, that is a long time. So no, I take that back. I said it wasn't 6 weeks. No, tomorrow that'll be 7 weeks. Yeah, tomorrow that'll mark 7 weeks ago. So yeah, it's been roughly about 7 weeks since the last time I cut my hair. But it's funny, some of my friends and relatives will point out my hair is actually a bit more curly and wavy the longer it is. Yeah, the longer my hair grows out, the more curly and wavy it becomes. Anyway, I'm 4 minutes into my video and I'm talking about my damn hair. Okay, here's why I'm coming to you today. As you know, there was an incident in the United Kingdom involving a self-proclaimed black pill subscriber. Black pill subscriber. He was a subscriber to the black pill mindset and philosophy. And I've had my criticisms against guys who are of the black pill mindset. His name was Jake Davison, and he killed like 5 people, including his own mother and a 3-year-old girl. And so anyway, yesterday, the young brother who I've appeared on his live stream quite a few times over the last year and a half, Bernard Riley, he had a live stream where he touched on that, if only briefly. He touched on it, and I joined his live stream. So anyway, while he was talking to me, every now and then I would glance in the chat room, and I still keep seeing people making this comment. It wasn't too many. It was probably maybe 3 or 4 guys. But there are at least 3 or 4 guys in the chat room, that had to throw some criticisms my way. And they were saying stuff to the effect of, ARCs, man, you can't. If ARC was an ugly dude, there would be no such thing as his Mode 1 philosophy. The only reason why ARC is all about Mode 1, because he's a really good-looking dude. Yeah, there was a bunch of comments related to the connection between being good-looking and the effectiveness of my Mode 1 approach, which has been honestly happening for a number of years, definitely since I've been on YouTube. I would say definitely since I've been on YouTube. I don't know what it is about YouTube. Now, it happened a few times even before I got on YouTube, but I would say definitely since I got on YouTube, a lot of guys have made that argument. Matter of fact, if I had to reference that video again, that's called the top 5 dumbest and or most highly invalid criticisms and arguments against my Mode 1 approach, that is dumb argument number 4. I call that dumb argument number 4. I got my 5 most frequently expressed arguments and criticisms that I consider either just at maximum just dumb or at minimum just highly invalid. And that's highly invalid argument number 4 is that Mode 1 is only effective for guys who either have an exceptionally good-looking face and or an exceptionally great-looking physique. And if you're not in that category, Mode 1 is not going to work for you. So anyway, even after the live stream, I engaged in a debate in the comment section of Bernard's live stream. And this guy presented an argument against Mode 1. And in his defense, well, number one, it was a respectful discussion and debate. He didn't hurl any personal insults my way. He didn't hurl any ad hominem attacks my way. So in that regard, I would say it was a respectful discussion and disagreement and debate, which I respect. That's the difference between a hater and a critic. I've always said there's a difference between a hater and a critic. A critic is just someone who sticks to the issue at hand, the subject at hand. They don't, digress into personal insults or ad hominem attacks. They just stick to the issue. And so I give respect to this brother. Well, I think he was a brother. But here's what he presented. I'm going to be paraphrasing some of his words because I don't have it right in front of me because some of it was lengthy. But essentially, this is what he said. He said, Alan, you have to admit that your Mode 1 approach is more or less biased towards guys that are a combination of good looking, and or guys who have a smooth persuasively charming, seductive mouthpiece, which would actually be my invalid argument number 5. Invalid argument number 5 has to do with the mouthpiece, and invalid argument number 4 has to do with the looks issue. And that's basically, you can say he presented both of those arguments. He said, I think Mo 1 is highly biased towards men who are good looking, or if not good looking, guys who have an exceptionally charismatic, smooth, persuasively charming, seductive mouthpiece. One of the two, if not both. He basically went on to say, he said, Alan, here's what I firmly believe about your Mo 1 approach. And this relates to my 5 archetypes, which of course is reciprocator, rejector, wholesome pretender, erotic hypocrite, and manipulative time waster. This is what he basically said. He said, Alan, I think you pointed out in a recent video of yours, and you've pointed out a number of times, that Mo 1 basically has 2 primary objectives. And I did point that out on a recent video. One of my followers actually pointed it out. But I've pointed out myself before. He said, from what I understand, Mo 1 has 2 primary objectives. One objective is for men to use your Mo 1 approach in order to quickly identify and weed out the women you refer to as manipulative time wasters. He says, so in that respect, if that's your objective, you don't really need to be good looking, or you don't really need to have a smooth, seductive mouthpiece. You just need to have the balls and backbone to be verbally direct, which is true. Which is true. As most people know, the 2 books that represent that objective, using Mo 1 to quickly identify and weed out manipulative time wasters, would be my book, The Possibility of Sex, and my more recent updated version of that book called No Free Attention. Possibility of Sex and No Free Attention. Those are the 2 books that represent using Mo 1 for the objective of quickly identifying and weeding out manipulative time wasters. So this guy I was debating with, he basically acknowledged that. He said, yeah, when it comes to that objective, you don't necessarily need to be good looking. You don't necessarily need to have a smooth, persuasively charming, seductive mouthpiece. You just need to have the balls and backbone to be verbally direct with women. And as I had a follower point out, 3 videos ago, he made the argument. He said, Alan, I don't feel like you have many haters and harsh critics in regards to using Mo 1 for that objective. That's what this guy who I pointed out 3 videos ago said. He said, I don't feel like you have many haters and harsh critics when it comes to using Mo 1 for the objective of quickly identifying and weeding out manipulative time wasters. Again, that objective is best represented by my book, The Possibility of Sex and No Free Attention. Then he said, your other objective is for Mo 1, for guys to use Mo 1 to help them quickly identify and attract reciprocators, which would be primarily based on that man's looks. To quickly identify and attract reciprocators, which is primarily based on that guy's looks, and or to quickly identify and ultimately seduce wholesome pretenders and erotic hypocrites, which is primarily based on that man's smooth, persuasively charming, seductive mouthpiece. So he said, that's objective number 2. So he said, basically he said, I get that. And again, a lot of this is paraphrased because I don't have his comments right in front of me. But he said, yeah, I get that. He said, here's where I have the problem with Mo 1. Here's where I have the criticism of Mo 1. Let's say you don't really have the looks to attract the women that are reciprocators. You just don't have the base level looks to attract a reciprocator. Then on top of that, you don't have the smooth, persuasively charming, seductive mouthpiece to connect with the wholesome pretenders and erotic hypocrites. And then to add insult to injury, on top of those two things, you don't have the looks, you don't have the mouthpiece, and then on top of that, you don't have the entertaining personality or financial resources, financial and materialistic resources to even have manipulative time wasters gravitate towards you. So out of your 5 archetypes, you're not really crossing paths with 4 of your 5 archetypes. You're not crossing paths with reciprocators. You're not crossing paths with wholesome pretenders. You're not crossing paths with erotic hypocrites. And you're not crossing paths with even manipulative time wasters. The only women you're crossing paths with are rejector after rejector after rejector after rejector. He said, that's the one guy I feel like Mo 1 just does not benefit at all. Your Mo 1 approach does not benefit at all. Is a guy who only seems to cross paths with women who either quickly, abruptly, straightforwardly reject him or just flat out ignore him, don't even give him the time of day. If they don't reject him, they just ignore him and don't give him the time of day. He said, I think that Mo 1, your Mo 1 approach does not benefit guys in that category. And you know what? Some might find this mildly surprising. You know what? For the most part, you could say, put an asterisk next to my response. But for the most part, I agree with him. I agree with him. Normally, I disagree with the assertions of many of my haters and harsh critics. But in this case, I agree with him. If you're a guy that is so physically unattractive that you never, ever run across any reciprocators, then Mo 1 is not going to really be to your benefit. If you have no sense of charisma or persuasive charm or verbally smooth and seductive appeal to women, you don't know how to talk that talk, as my late great mother would say, Mo 1 is really not going to benefit you. And at bare minimum, if you don't have anything appealing about your non-sexual time, attention, and companionship, such as a flattering and entertaining personality, and along with financial and materialistic generosity, you don't even have anything that would make manipulative time wasters gravitate towards you, then yeah, how would Mo 1 really be beneficial to you? How would Mo 1 be beneficial to you? If the out of my 5 archetypes, if the only archetype you ever run into would be rejectors, you never cross paths with any of the other 4 archetypes, the only archetype you cross paths with is women who are rejectors, then yeah, Mo 1 is not going to benefit you. But here's what I would say to follow up on that, though. What is going to benefit you, though? What method is? You know, I've always said a million times, there's only really 5 general methods that will help a man get a woman in bed, particularly for casual sex, as opposed to relationship sex, particularly for casual sex. There's only 5 things, general methods of a man getting a woman in bed. And for the upteenth time, I'm going to give you a recap. Number 1 is attraction. Attraction relates to the factor of looks. Along with looks would be your demeanor and disposition and your overall, what I refer to as your masculine sex appeal. Those are the 3 things that contribute to attraction, which is what helps you get reciprocators in bed. Yeah, the number 1 thing that's going to help you get reciprocators in bed is your looks, your demeanor and disposition, and your overall masculine sex appeal. That's going to help you get reciprocators in bed in the form of attraction. The next method of getting women in bed is verbal persuasion and verbal seduction. Verbal persuasion and verbal seduction. And that's when the factor of your mouthpiece comes into play. The only way you're going to get a woman in bed that's a wholesome pretender or an erotic hypocrite, well, I ain't going to say the only way. I'll touch your nose when I get to the next methods. But I would say the only honest and ethical way you're going to get honest, ethical, and inexpensive. Honest, ethical, and inexpensive way you're going to get a wholesome pretender or an erotic hypocrite in bed is by verbal persuasion and verbal seduction. So I wouldn't say the only way you're going to get those 2 archetypes of bed, but I would say the only manner you will get those 2 types of bed by being a combination of honest, ethical, and not spending no money is through verbal persuasion and verbal seduction. Then, if you want to get a wholesome pretender in bed without necessarily being honest or ethical, then you're going to resort to behavior that's a combination of dishonest, disingenuous and misleading, and emotionally manipulative. Behavior that's a combination of dishonest, disingenuous and misleading, and emotionally manipulative. You can say that's the unethical way to get a wholesome pretender in bed. The unethical way to get a wholesome pretender in bed is using dishonesty, disingenuous and misleading behavior, and emotional manipulation. Then, if you want to get an erotic hypocrite in bed without using verbal persuasion or verbal seduction, then of course you got to turn to money. That's the number 1 alternative to get an erotic hypocrite in bed if you don't have any type of verbal seduction skills or erotic dirty talk skills. You got to resort to money. You got to resort to monetary compensation or financial negotiation. Now, if you lacking in the looks department with an erotic hypocrite, and more so you're lacking in the mouthpiece department with an erotic hypocrite, you're going to have to resort to some form of monetary compensation or financial negotiation, otherwise known as either tricking, whining and dining, or long-term financial provision. Those are the 3 forms of pay for play. It's tricking, whining and dining, and long-term financial provision. And then the final category, and probably, as I always say, the most despicable and even illegal category of the 5 would be some form of physical force, such as rape, date rape, sexual assault, or at minimum, you use drugs and or alcohol to circumvent verbal consent. If you don't use physical force and blatant coercion you use drugs and or alcohol to circumvent verbal consent. And I call that whole category just simply coercion. Yeah, the number one guy who's going to result to some form of coercion is guys that don't have, basically guys who don't have what it takes to get women in bed using the other four categories. You don't have the looks to just attract women into your bed. You don't have the verbal seduction skills, erotic dirty talk skills, and overall mouthpiece to seduce women into your bed. You don't have what it takes to be a liar, an emotional manipulator. You don't have what it takes to be a liar or emotional manipulator. And you don't have the money to pull the quality of women you want to get in bed in a pay-for-play type manner. So you resort to some type of physical force, physical coercion, or drugs and or alcohol. Get it? Got it? Good. So here's what I have to say about the guy who I engaged in a discussion and disagreement and debate with. I start with he touched on basically three things. Guys who lack looks to pull women, guys who lack the mouthpiece to seduce women, and guys who don't even have the appealing non-sexual attention or the finances to attract manipulative time wasters. I'll start with the looks thing, since this seems to be a big issue, again, with guys here on YouTube. Really, I would say it's a big issue with a lot of guys in life, period. But it seems to be a real big issue among guys here on YouTube, man. Yeah, man, I hear the whole looks thing quite a bit. I'm going to tell you something, man. I can just speak for myself. I can just speak for my experiences and observations in life, period, and more specifically, my experience and observations specifically as a book author and dating coach. I know there are men who exist in life that can be arguably categorized as repulsively unattractive or hideously ugly. I know there are men in this world that would fall under one of those two categories. But that said, if I went back as far back as high school up until now, I've never met a man that was totally unsuccessful with women simply because he was less than average looking. And that's the honest God's truth. I have never, ever met a man that wasn't able to have some degree of success with women simply because he was considered less than average looking. I would say on that male scale of 1 to 10, here's how I would rank it. On a male scale of 1 to 10, and usually women are the ones who can rate a guy better than another man can. But if you're considered an 8, 9, or 10, an 8, 9, or a 10, I would even be generous and say a 7, 8, 9, or 10. If you're a 7, 8, 9, or 10, that's when most women are going to consider you good looking. If you're a 7, 8, 9, or 10 on a scale from 1 to 10 in the eyes of women, most women you interact with, that's when you're going to be considered good looking. Average would be a guy that's a 4, 5, or 6. 4, 5, or 6. If you're a 4, 5, or 6, that means you're average looking. If you're a 1, 2, or 3, a 1, 2, or 3 in the eyes of women, that means you're considered less than average looking. Less than average looking. Again, I'm speaking solely for myself. I've known a lot of guys who were either high school classmates of mine, guys I knew while I was in college at Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, or just known generally in life, that were as low on the 1 to 10 scale as a 3 or a 4, that still were able to pull at least a handful of women because they had above average to exceptional social skills. They had above average to exceptional social skills. So, I can't think of a guy, honestly, off the top of my head. I can't think of a guy who was just what you would call like repulsively ugly or repulsively unattractive or hideously ugly. Like almost to the point where they look like deformed or something. That just when they were around women would look at them like, oh my God, he's just like, ugh, I even can't stand to look at him. I've never been around guys like that. Again, using a scale from 1 to 10, once again, at the lowest end, I've been around is guys that were maybe a 3 on a scale from 1 to 10. I don't think I've ever really been around guys who were 1s or 2s. I mean, again, I know there's guys in life in general that exist that are 1s or 2s. But I'm saying as far as guys that I like regularly or semi-regularly socialize with, I've never regularly or semi-regularly socialized with guys who are below a 3. The lowest on the physical attractive scale that I would probably say of guys who I was acquainted with was guys that were maybe like a 3 or a 4. And a lot of those guys still had successful women. They didn't have they might not have great successful women, but they were able to pull at least like a girlfriend or, you know, one or two fuck buddies. Mainly because they had, like I talked about a guy on Bernard's live stream. One of my frat brothers. We used to call him DC. We used to call him DC. I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, he was probably a 5. He was probably a 5. He was about 6'1". So he did have it going on in terms of height. He was 6'1". He was real dark, like jet black dark. And DC, man, he used to pull more women than a lot of guys who would be considered like a 7, 8, or a 9. And that's real talk. And he was probably like a 5 in terms of overall attractiveness. But he used to pull more women than a lot of the guys who were 7s, 8s, and 9s. Because he had a boatload of charisma and personal charm. So on the looks part, in just real simple terms, I never met a man that was just so repulsively unattractive and hideously ugly that women just walked the other way when they saw him. I don't know anybody like that, man. Number 2 thing this guy was guys who lack mouthpiece. Now, I'll be honest, I've met a lot of guys who are lacking in the mouthpiece department. That's at least half the reason why I'm a professional dating coach, is to help man in terms of just, number 1, I would say their overall social skills, and more specifically, their conversation skills, their verbal seduction skills, erotic dirty talk skills. Now, in comparison to looks, I would say I've met far, far, far more men in my life who were severely lacking in the area of overall social skills, overall conversation skills, and even more specifically, verbal seduction skills and erotic dirty talk skills than I have guys who are severely lacking in the looks department. Like, I use my clients, for example. When I think about the clients that I've worked with over roughly the last 20 years or so, I haven't had hardly any clients, dating coaching clients of mine, that were just honestly, just like ugly. And I don't even like to use that word. My mother didn't like me and my brother using that word when we were little. She didn't like the word ugly. She would sometimes pop us in the mouth if we used, seriously, if we came home from like, say, elementary school or middle school, and we were describing like a girl in our school as ugly, she would give us a light little pop. She would say, don't ever use that word. So generally speaking, I don't like to even use the word ugly. But for purposes of this discussion, I've rarely had clients that I've looked at them physically and said, oh man, this guy's going to have a hard time attracting women. I don't think I've ever had a client on most women's, the male scale of 1 to 10. I don't think I've ever had a client that was less than a 4. And that's real talk. I don't think I've ever had a client that was less than a 4. I don't think I've ever had a dating coach or client that, in terms of overall physical appearance, was like a 1, a 2, or a 3. Probably the lowest I've had on the proverbial 1 to 10 scale was maybe a guy that was a 4. Now, I've had some guys, physique-wise, more so than facially, physique-wise, that were either significantly underweight, i.e. skinny, or significantly overweight, i.e. fat or obese. So I've had guys in those two categories. Yeah, I've definitely had dating coaches clients that were significantly underweight, i.e. skinny, or significantly overweight, i.e. fat or obese. And I just encouraged them, if they were underweight, I encouraged them to start, eating more protein and working out, building some muscle. And if they were overweight, of course, I encouraged them to eat better and, exercise more regularly so they can. Matter of fact, I got a couple clients right now that have, starting with our first consultation, they recognized that they were significantly overweight and they're making efforts, either working with a health and fitness trainer or just, creating their own discipline to help improve their physique. But in terms of just pure facial, again, man, I would say I've never had a client that was less than a 4. I've had clients on a 1 to 10 scale. I've had clients as low as roughly a 4. And I've had clients that are as handsome as like maybe a 9. Like I just was at a consultation with a Caucasian guy from Europe last week. Now, the young guys, anytime guys in my generation didn't do this, but I know there's a lot of young guys, if they want to give another heterosexual, if they're heterosexual and they want to give another heterosexual man a compliment on his looks, they preface all their compliments by saying, no homo. That cracks me up, man. On a side note, I remember when I used to work for the university, a lot of guys used to always say that. I used to work with a lot of college-age students. And the guy who ran my program nationally, we were at this conference, and these guys kept saying that, and he just stopped them. He said, hey, man, what's up with this no homo comment? So you all saying that it's impossible to give a man a compliment on like he looks good in a suit or he's just generally a handsome guy without saying no homo? Because see, guys in the older generations, if another guy they thought was handsome, they would say, yeah, that's a good looking guy. But yeah, all the young guys, I always say no homo. Anyway, so lightheartedly saying the whole no homo preface. I worked with a guy about a week ago, maybe somewhere between a week and a half ago. Caucasian guy from Europe. Man, this dude looked like a model, man. Seriously. Hey, He looked like a model. I would estimate, I don't know, different women have different tastes, but if I was speaking my prediction on women on that scale of 1 to 10, he would rank somewhere between an 8 and a 9 on most women's 1 to 10 scale. I mean, facially, he looked like a model. And I couldn't see his whole physique, but just from the upper part of his physique, he looked like he kept himself in shape. He looked athletic. And so he was a guy that physically, in terms of physical looks, I'll just say in simple terms, he didn't look like the type of guy that would ever have problems with women, just on physical appearance. He didn't look like the type of guy that would ever have problems with women. But I know from doing the consultation with him that he does have some issues with women. He has a lot of things that are not related to his physical appearance. But anyway, my original point was, when it comes to running across guys who are severely lacking in the area of looks versus guys who are severely lacking in the area of overall social skills, conversation skills, verbal seduction skills, and erotic dirty talk skills, I've met way, way, way more guys that were lacking in terms of social skills and mouthpiece than guys who are severely lacking in terms of looks. Again, that's what most of my clients are. I would say probably no less than 90-95% of my clients are guys who are lacking in that area more so than looks. Most of my clients are guys who are lacking in just the area of overall social skills, conversation skills, verbal seduction skills, and erotic dirty talk skills, more so than physical appearance. But yeah, because that's, based on my conversations with women, I know this for a fact. A lot of women, not all women, but a lot of women I know are more likely to find a man creepy and just generally unappealing and undesirable if he has very awkward social skills and very awkward, underdeveloped conversation skills, rather than a guy who's just considered average looking or less than average looking. Again, going back to my high school days, man, I knew a lot of guys who were definitely average looking and even some that were less than average looking that made up for it with their personality and their charisma and their social skills. And they still were able to connect with certain women. They still were able to connect. They might not have been connecting with Victoria's Secret model level caliber women, but they were still connecting with women. But on the flip side, I've known guys I've always known that had problems connecting with women, period, was usually guys who had very, very awkward and severely underdeveloped social skills and conversation skills. Women don't like to be around guys like that. Those are the no one type of guys that honestly creep women out. And this is not just my own opinion. This is women telling me this themselves. Women don't really like to be around guys who come across as just very nervous, non-confident, and socially awkward. That's a major, major turnoff for the average woman. Major turnoff for the average woman. Trust me when I say that. So we covered looks, we covered mouthpiece and social skills. Now, third, that this guy I was in the debate with was talking about is just guys who not only don't have the social skills to attract women in a romantic or sexual way, but guys who don't even have the personality or social skills to attract women in a purely platonic manner, which would cause them, of course, to attract a lot of manipulative time waster types. See, again, that's related to social skills. I mean, I'm going to try not to get too lengthy because I'm running out of time. But me personally, I can only speak for myself. I've rarely interacted with a man that didn't have women wanting to be their platonic friend. I mean, again, I've said this a number of times. That's the main reason why I actually wrote my original Mo 1 book. That's the number one reason why I wrote my original Mo 1 book. My original Mo 1 book, the first version came out publicly. Actually, I technically first wrote my first version of Mo 1 in 1995, but I didn't make it available to the general public. The first version that I made available, you could say, to the general public was my 1999 version of Mo 1. I published that about 2 weeks before Memorial Day in 1999. And for those who want to say, well, Alan, he probably just became a book author and dating coach to make money. He don't really care about helping men. He just wants to make money. I've told this story 3 or 4 times before. I'll tell it again. Do you know for roughly the first 2+ years that I came out with my 1999 Mo 1 book, I was just giving it away? Literally. I'll tell you one person in the black manosphere who would back me up on that. Ron Wheels. Because he was one of the ones who encouraged me to start selling it. Yeah. Between roughly mid-May of 1999 and early to mid-September of 2001, because I first crossed paths with Ron Wheels via the internet, I want to say in either mid to late August or early to mid-September of 2001. That's when I first crossed paths with Ron Wheels, and I was actually asking Ron Wheels for advice on how to turn my ebook into a paperback, because it was just an ebook and I wanted it to be a paperback. And that's how me and Ron Wheels connected. But anyway, Ron was there was 2 guys who encouraged me to sell my ebook instead of just giving it away. The first was my older brother, Steven, and the second person was Ron Wheels. He was basically like, man, this book is too good for you to just be giving it away, man. But yeah, I literally used to just give. I had this amateur website where you could just go and click on a download link and you could just get my 1999 ebook version of Mo 1 for free. I wouldn't even try. And it ain't like I didn't need the money, because I was struggling in 1999 and 2000. I was living in Los Angeles. I came back to the Midwest in early October of 2000. But yeah, I needed the money. But yeah, I used to give it away for about 2 years and 3 months. For about 2 years and 3 months, I used to give away my 1999 ebook version of Mo 1. But anyway, what I was going to say is the number one objective of Mo 1, when I came out with Mo 1, was not necessarily to help guys get laid and not to help men prevent and avoid rejection, but was to help guys prevent and avoid being friend zoned. I talked about that in a recent video just a few weeks ago. That was my number one objective of Mo 1, was to help guys prevent themselves from being friend zoned by women. Because most guys I've known have always had at least a small percentage of women that was always trying to friend zone them. So I can't relate, honestly, to a guy that's never been friend zoned by a woman. I can't relate to that. I honestly can't. I know there's guys who call themselves, some percentage of incels would fall into that category. Some guys who call themselves, TFL, true forced loneliness, who said not only have they never had a girlfriend or a casual sex lover, but they've never even had a female platonic friend. Yeah, there are guys in society. They might only be a small percentage, but there are some guys in society, they've never had either one. They've never had a girlfriend. They've never had a casual sex lover other than a prostitute. And they've never had a short-term or long-term female platonic friend. See, I honestly, for the most part, I can't almost even relate to guys that have never been friend zoned before, man. Most of the guys I've known in my life, if they had some challenges attracting a girlfriend or some challenges attracting a fuck buddy, at minimum, they had an easy time attracting women that wanted to use them for either their non-sexual time, attention, and companionship, or use them for their financial resources and materialistic possessions. I mean, but yeah, that's the one guy that won't benefit from Mode 1. If you're not able to use Mode 1 to help you quickly identify and weed out manipulative time wasters, and you can't use Mode 1 to help you quickly identify and attract reciprocators, or quickly identify and ultimately seduce wholesome pretenders and erotic hypocrites, then you're right. Mode 1 is not going to benefit you. But my question is, what will? That's my $1 million question. What will? If you're severely lacking in looks, you're severely lacking in social skills, conversation skills, verbal seduction skills, erotic dirty talk skills, and on top of both of those, you don't even have what it takes to attract women to want to use you for your non-sexual time, attention, and companionship, and or use you for your financial resources and materialistic possessions. Shit. I mean, all I can offer is my empathy and sympathy to you. If you look at Jake Davidson, the guy who said he was a self-proclaimed black pillar, in my opinion, speaking of looks, to me, he wasn't repulsively unattractive. He wasn't hideously ugly. He looked to be somewhat overweight. But other than that, man, physically, he could have improved himself to pull some women. So he wasn't severely lacking in terms of looks, Jake Davidson. But I bet you money he was probably severely lacking in the area of overall social skills, conversation skills. I bet he didn't have no mouthpiece. I know there's a lot of young guys today, man. They spend too much time on the internet. They don't have enough social interactions with people in real life, and it's stunted their social skills, man. I'm telling you, I can't emphasize this enough, man. Between the two, you will have more problems with women, attracting women, when you are severely lacking in the area of social skills, conversation skills, and more specifically, verbal seduction skills and erotic dirty talk talents, than you will just being average or less than average in looks. You can make up for looks with a high degree of confidence, a high degree of masculine sex appeal, and for damn sure with a mouthpiece. Whatever you lack in looks, you can compensate for that with either your level of confidence, your overall level of masculine sex appeal, with a persuasively charming, charismatic, smooth, seductive mouthpiece. And if all those fail, at least, some money, career success, financial success, so you can resort to being a trick or a sugar daddy or a long-term financial provider. But, so there's things that can compensate for looks, man. But, man, if you're severely lacking in the social skills area, in every subcategory of social skills, you're going to have problems. And that's why I've been in business for over 20 years, because I help men improve their social skills, their conversation skills, their verbal seduction skills, their erotic dirty talk skills. And in my strong opinion, there's no dating coach or PUA in the world that's better than me in that area.
Yes, sir.
Say it again.
Yes, sir.
Who's the king?
Alan, you're the king.
Say it again.
Alan, you're the king. You're dominating me.
Say it again.
Alan, you're dominating me right now. Mode 1.
Mode 1.
Daddy, can I go, please? You're the king.
Say it again.
Oh, king. Oh, you're the fucking king. Yes. Yes. Yes.
You're the king, Alan.
AKA the king of verbal seduction. You know, it's the tone of your voice, how seductive your intonations are, the vibrations that you could just reach out over the phone lines and stroke a woman's breast just by the sound of your voice, how you could make her pussy so wet just by the sound of your voice. That's actually very hot.
So you said my show was what?
I said your show is powerful.
Oh, say it again.
Your show is powerful.
I bet the king would fuck me really good.
Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie.
Oh, yeah. Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie. The king.
The king.
The king.
I have to agree with you on the communication piece, because I actually did take a session with Alan Roger Currie, and he gave me a line that I did not think was going to work, and it worked. And I was like, what the fuck?
Oh my God!
Curry guys, man, he's the master. He's the master of the verbal seduction. He got that communication piece down pat.
It really worked. It just simply worked, and I just didn't think it was going to work at all.
Some guys have natural handles. Some guys have a better natural shot, but you can always improve your shot. And sex is damn sure something you can fucking learn. Look, dude, you want to learn how to talk better? I'm hiring Alan Roger Currie to get my dirty talk game on, because it's always been something I want to get better at.
Verbal seduction, man. I'm like, clearly, this guy's the Michael Jordan of seduction. Like, you know, come on now.